congratulations on the movie. And this film is it's quite a fit. It deals with many themes, especially for young women living and working in LA. How did you come across this script in the first place, and what made you want to be part of this?
Well, I first came across the script, um, and so it was sent to me through my management, and it was at the right in the middle of the SAG strike, and we had already been, you know, deep into the writer's strike, so there wasn't a lot of projects for actors to work on at the time, and when I got the audition for this one, it was a SAG ultra low budget. And so it got its interim agreement, and so we were able to make this movie. And when I auditioned for it, I thought that there were a lot of really cool and interesting aspects to Sarah that I thought would be fun to play as an actor. And I also, you know, thought that, Alexander Calvert and Kahyun Kim's work were really good, and the things that I watched them in, and um I was excited to work with them. I thought that they were really good actors.
What are the sort of I know that as a young woman in Hollywood, you've probably come across situations like the situations that are being told in this story. And did having that kind of proximity to the job, because you yourself are an actor as well as someone who's on social media and you're also a model, did that proximity of doing those things make it easier for you to sort of place yourself in this role?
I think there were definitely aspects of my own life that I could draw similarities on. There were also a lot of things that are different about Sarah than are alike.
Mm.
Um, And one of the things that I guess we share in common is this like modeling and social media aspect of our careers. I actually didn't have social media until I moved back to LA. I was born here. And I made it because I was told that I needed it for my work. So um it's been difficult because, social media, it's supposed to be, it was created with a different intent. And I think that people now use it for work. People have jobs that are purely based on these social media outlets. And I think that my stance against it when I was studying acting was that I thought that it did a lot of harm to people. It was too much focus on the person and too much ability for other people to comment and give validation. Um, and so I stayed away from it. And I think that Sarah is an example of all that negative things that come with social media compounding onto a person until their value and self-worth has been deteriorated. So yeah, she definitely is struggling with that and also trying to be taken seriously. And she also has a lot of aspects to her that make her really human, like she likes to knit. And I don't know if like she continued her life through, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but I don't know if she would have um gone down the same path as um she did in the movie if she had continued to live.
I very recently, I can't recall exactly who it was, but actually quite a successful actor or actress heard of, in an interview talking about how she was pushed by her management and an agency to have a social media presence because that's how the majority of actors are getting hired for movies on how many followers they have on Instagram, for example. Does that kind of thing really make you sort of rethink this whole business? And is there a way of protecting yourself from it at all?
There is a way of protecting yourself from it. I think in a lot of people's cases, they even on the production side or in, Sarah's case, they subscribe to the idea that they do need that. And especially when you're so young and naive, you think like, oh, you don't understand what the pitfalls might be of having that in your life. But I don't agree necessarily. I do think it makes it more difficult to be an actor, but I don't know if I would say that it's not possible to also be an actor and not have social media because I have good friends that don't have it and are quite successful, but they are tend to be older, like movies from a different generation. But also there's, Mikey Madison. She doesn't have a social media, and um, I can imagine that there might be some difficulties in opportunities that maybe she's had to come up against, but I do think it's possible.
Yeah, it can become kind of an act of rebellion not to play into those kind of sort of rules. I Let's talk about the movie itself. It's got like a very uh, unusual format in filming. So there are things going on around the story of this young actress who has found herself in a really precarious position. Can you talk us through that role and talk us through the sort of the tone of it and the unusual formatting of the movie?
The movie, what it tries to do is mimic the concept of life flashing before your eyes in a sense. Um, it's kind of trying to be a commentary on how our memory isn't always reliable and that the things that we remember tend to be things that make us feel things and how we felt in those memories more so than what is necessarily accurate or in a timeline. Um, like we end up remembering the people and events in our life, um, in how they made us feel and the magnitude and impact that it had on us going forward. Um, and I think it's also kind of like, in life, oftentimes we're given a split in the road where you could have made a different choice than the one that you made. Um, and I think that when we look back on our lives, we think about what would have happened had I made the other choice. And I think that the movie is Howard's intention is to make the movie kind of replicate that feeling. Um, Hence the whole title of the movie, double exposure. It's like the past and the present is kind of collapsing in on or the future and the past is kind of collapsing in on the present moment.
Mm. Did you work very closely with Howard in sort of trying to formulate the either the dialogue or the sort of the part itself to yours to suit you, or was it quite a rigid sort of script that you had to stick to?
It was definitely in this case, the script, we were married to the script. There was mostly just trying to bring to life Howard's vision. Um, and we also had to move really quickly. I mean, even though I was so lucky to be a part of this movie because there wasn't a lot of work happening at this, time when we were filming. And I'm so lucky to be a part of it because um, the concept is really intriguing and interesting. And all the people that I got to work with were really lovely. And um, but yes, with this one, I didn't do any script changes. We did some read-throughs and tried to rehearse it as much as possible, but we were very limited on how much time we had for some scenes. Sometimes, you only get a couple takes to do something, and but thankfully we did get to have like a read-through prior, and um, I think I knew I had the role about a week before we started filming. So that isn't a lot of time to prepare, but um nonetheless, I think it came off really beautifully, and the story is able to be comprehended and understood.
Yeah. I know you're from LA yourself, and you had moved away to go to college, if I understand well, and then you came back. And how does it feel as an Angelina or Angelina yourself, knowing the business so well, and sort of how would you sell it to somebody who wasn't brought up in that city, who wasn't brought up around that kind of like industry? Was it difficult for you to sort of come back home and inject yourself back into the work, into the film business, or was being born there? Did being born there prepare you for what's to come?
Being born where I was born had very little to do with what I decided to do as an adult. Um, at least I think so. But um, I actually auditioned for drama schools, and um, I did not go to drama school. I graduated from high school early, and I was actually raised in Arizona by my single mother, and that's where I went to high school. And I actually ended up graduating early and auditioning for drama schools. And one of the best things that I think could have happened to me as an actor was rejection. I remember auditioning for all of the top drama schools, and I got callbacks for a couple of them, but I received a lot of rejection letters that year. And I decided at 17 years old that I still wanted to do this. And I moved by myself to Los Angeles and got an agent, got a manager, and was making movies like a year later. And just really, the thing that I had to learn as an actor was to have grit and determination. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that anyone has ever given me came from a seasoned actor. I had never done anything yet, but I had studied a lot. Even though I didn't go to drama school, I did study a lot, and I did theater. But the best piece of advice that I'd ever been given was don't act. Like just don't act. And I didn't really get much of an explanation from them. But then the thing that I ended up taking away from it was that if someone can tell you that to not do an art form, that if it's so they can dissuade you that easily, then this is not for you, because there is a lot of rejection, and you can't take it personally. And the other flip side of that piece of advice is just when it comes down to it, and you are acting and you have done the preparation, and you should just relax into that and not act. And if they can see you acting, then you're not doing a good job. Uh, at least I've been that away from that through what I've learned. But yeah, I thought that was really good advice.
Finally, just one last question is, do you have any other sort of projects that are about to come out, or are you sort of, is there anyone in particular that you would love to work with?
Hmm. Well, I really have always wanted to work with directors of the people that like I think of when I think of people I want to work with. And um, on that list right now is, of course, like a lot of female directors. Like I really like Greta Gerwig and Patty Jenkins, and recently I've gravitated a lot towards those two and Sofia Coppola, and but also like David Fincher, and um, I really love. Like Sean Baker is someone who's new on my list who I'm like, wow, he's really done a lot of interesting and cool movies. And yeah, I'm also really excited for an upcoming project that I've been working on for a couple of years now. Um, we we are currently location scouting. I'm not there right now, but I'm helping to produce it. And also I just did a project this time last year that should be coming out soon called The Possession of Gladstone Manor, which I also executive produced, and had a really great time filming that one. It's like it's going to be a fun one. It's something I've never done before.
I could definitely see you in a Sean Baker movie. I think there is a heft there. Yeah, so congratulations again, and thank you so, so much for talking to me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for talking to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!